use it to achieve fire extinction at the incipient stage of the fire. But if you're unable to achieve it at that stage, it gets to the growth stage. And once it gets to the growth stage, the only extinguisher that you can use to put out the fire are the bigger sizes of the fire extinguishers, such as your 25 kg DCP, which you have outside of your building. And remember, I said it requires a crew of two to be able to use that. But if you're not able to achieve the fire, if you're not able to put out the fire at the growth stage, if it gets to the fully developed stage, the fire extinguisher becomes useless. And at this point, this is when the flashover occurs. The flashover has to do with simultaneous involvement of fire from the ground to the ceiling as a result of intensity of heat. So once it gets to the fully developed stage, your fire extinguisher becomes useless. At this point, it's just to call the fire service to turn out their appliances to put out the fire. They are the only ones that can put out the fire at the fully developed stage, but by the grace of God, we will never experience that. And at this point, if we are not able to put out the fire at the flashover stage, the fire decays. And there's a risk of a backdraft at this point. A backdraft is a sudden release of oxygen in a heated, enclosed place, which results to an explosion. This has to do with firefighters such as myself. So I don't think this is applicable here. So on this part, still has to do with the use of the fire extinguisher. You pull the safety pin, you aim at the base of the fire, you squeeze the head lever, then you sweep. That way you will achieve fire extinction. So as you can see, this other part, these are just the steps to take in the event of a fire. If you have people in the building and they happen to be fire, you have to find a way to alert them. If your fire alarm is not able to do so, alert people when there's fire. Use the stairs. And if you happen to find yourself in a smoke-blocked area, crawl through the smoke because the smoke rises. If you crawl through the smoke, you'll be safe. Then you say break the glass. This is a point where someone sights fire that you or she not able to put out. Then you break the glass, the manual component, which is one of the components of the fire alarm system. And then you look for the nearest exit so as to, find your way out of the building to a safer place. Get the fire extinguisher if you can. Fight the fire if you can. If the fire happens to be around you, look for the fire extinguisher and put out the fire before it gets out of control. Do not waste time on social network. During emergencies, you have to put your phone aside because a lot of us are distracted by our phones and all of those. During an emergency, you have to put your phone aside so that you'll be alert and know what steps to take. This has to do with the signages. These signages are the signages that takes you outside of the building. This is the route that you take so as to escape and find yourself at an assembly point. So far so good. We're about rounding up the first module, and I'll quickly give you a story that actually happened. This is a true life story. I personally experienced it. Some years ago, there was fire in my neighborhood, and then I woke up to a noise. I went out and found out that there was fire. I partook in fighting the fire. It was actually my friend's house. We tried all we could to put out the fire, but the fire had gone out of control. So we said to ourselves, no one should go back to that building. Someone had to put the call through to the fire service, and before we knew it, they had arrived the scene. They came with their fire trucks, and they started fighting the fire. And eventually they were able to put out the fire. And once they put out the fire, there's an exercise they carry out called salvage and overhauling. Once they put out the fire, they still go back to the building to check if there's a hidden fire that might trigger. And they also try to clear the place. So in the course of carrying out salvage and overhauling, they found my friend's dead body. We were all surprised and shocked. This is a true life story. So we started saying to ourselves, what could have happened? We had said no one should go back to that building. But my friend went back to the building, and Unfortunately, he didn't make it out of the building. What I'm trying to say in essence is that life is worth more than material possession. If a fire, wherever you find yourself, and a fire engulfs a building, no matter what you have there, whether you have a billionaire, whether you have whatever document that you have, you just have to let go because life is worth more than material possession. So we just rounded up the first module, which is fire safety awareness. Please, I'd like to. Is there any questions I can? Do you have any questions before we move on to the next model, which is fire emergency evacuation procedures?
Thank you for that enlightening presentation. Very interesting. Well, let's see. If you have question, the floor is open. You can use the chat platform or unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay. So I'll quickly take us through the fail on fire evacuation procedure while we put together the question.
Is that it?
Yes, we are scheduled for 5 days school. Is my mic on? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Hello, Mr. Ikena.
Yes, I'm with you. I can see your screen.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. I can hear you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, Madam Patient.